Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and you're on with Alan Potcotter, and you're listening to Call Talk for November 20th, 2018. Today's topic is workforce management, new insights from a seasoned veteran. If you're listening live, we invite you to be part of the show and ask questions. Here's how you do so. Email me at calltalk@benchmarkportal.com. I want to remind everyone that all of our shows are archived and available to be listened to at benchmarkportal.com any time of the day. And now I would like to introduce the host of Call Talk, Bruce Belfiore.
Thank you, Alan, and welcome back to Call Talk, everyone. Now, we all know that managing the workforce is key to success in the contact center sector, both for reasons of financial efficiency and for reasons of quality and effectiveness. And it also makes the lives of managers much more pleasant when it's done well. And that's why we wanted to talk more about workforce management and the changing contact center. So we brought in an expert on the topic for you, Rick Seeley, Senior Manager of Workforce Management for Concentrix. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thanks, Bruce. Glad to be here. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, great. Well, just for our audience, Rick Seeley is currently the Senior Manager of Workforce Management for Concentrix. He's been in the call center industry for over 28 years, with 27 of them in workforce management at all levels. So a ton of experience here. Currently, he's responsible for planning, forecasting, and scheduling some 7,000 agents worldwide. Rick also has a lot of industry accolades. He's a frequent speaker on workforce management. And in fact, I met Rick when he spoke at the Interactions Conference last spring. He's the chairperson for the NICE In Contact user group for Dallas-Fort Worth. He's a past advisory board member of the Society of Workforce Planning Professionals. And on the personal side, Rick has 25 years as high school sports official in Texas, and he also plays drums in a band all over the country. And he's married, his bio says, this time for 35 years, 3 children, 1 stepchild, 6 grandchildren. So Rick has had some heavy workforce management scheduling challenges on the home front as well. So we're just delighted to have you. And Rick, you know, the first thing I just have to ask you, 7,000 people is a ton of workforce management, planning, forecasting, and scheduling. How do you do it?
Well, you know, a lot of it is the fact that I've got a great team, and I think that's paramount, that for every workforce manager out there, you've got to have a team that you can trust, you can develop, you can teach, to get everything rolling the same way and everybody reading the same sheet of music, if you will, for a cliche. I've got a great team of 11 people that work on these 7,000 person schedules. We do capacity planning. We do the actual forecast, and of course, being an outsourcer as Concentrix is, we also have the challenge of working for two masters, if you will. You have our clients because we're an outsourcer to them, but you also have our internal, processes and things that have to be adhered to. So consequently, we end up with, serving two masters, but the big deal is to make sure that our clients that come to us for assistance all are served. And my team is really, really good with what we do. And we do from the capacity planning side, scheduling classes, scheduling hirings, tracking the attrition and shrinkage, all those routine things that a workforce manager does. We just do it on a bigger scale. And again, I'll just reiterate that since I'm part of Concentrix, I'm just a small piece of several workforce management teams like that around the world, basically. But yeah, we do it, and we use a lot of automation.
Okay. Yeah, and I imagine that some of the people on your team are specialized too. I mean, when it comes to the forecasting side, the scheduling side, the planning side, do you have people who are specialized, or is everybody sort of doing all of those things?
Well, most of my separation comes from the capacity planning piece and the long range planning and the hiring and the requisitions and that type of thing. That's kind of specialized. Everybody else is, they start out as a scheduler because that's the easy part. The forecasting piece gets a little more intricate, but I develop all of them with the end goal that you are a universal workforce management person. That's the end goal, so that you can do the forecasting, you can do the scheduling, you can adjust the forecast, you can make the schedule adjustments that are needed week to week, day to day, and then of course all the reporting that goes along with it. But the main topic is to get those guys in to learn the scheduling piece and then branch them out, develop them so that you have a full team that can have, backup capabilities, because you never know who's going to go get hit by a bus, and then tomorrow, you're short a person. So it's always good to have everybody trained across the board so that, workforce never lets up.
Okay, so that's interesting because I've talked to different people, and some of them seem to be a little bit more siloed in the sense that, for the different areas, they have specializations, and those are the people who do that thing. And yours idea is more to have everybody cross-trained so that they can do it. I think your approach is, in terms of training, is definitely the best. It could be that in some cases people want accountability on specific silos for specific people, and that could be something that managerially could be an appropriate thing to do. But in terms of training and having sort of your mind opened up to what everybody's doing, your approach makes sure that everybody's mind is opened up. What are your thoughts on that, and also what I just said about accountability?
Well, the accountability still exists. If you have a client and you have certain sites that you're assigned to, you are soup to nuts responsible for that. So they're accountable for that. And our operations groups all know those particular people. So if you're in Site A in New York and you're in Site B in California, there's somebody that's assigned as the responsible person for that site. So the accountability is still there. You don't get relieved of that. You just get to be more accountable from the forecasting and the scheduling side than just one part or the other. What we do with the training, I think that's what's key. That's different with what I do versus what other people or companies, even within Concentrics, do. Is I have training sessions with my team, and I will pick someone and I will give them a small topic because, just like anywhere else, everybody has, churn. They have the attrition, or they have the people getting moved to a different job, or that type of thing. So this workforce team is not solid forever. So you end up with having to retrain someone or extra train someone. So what I do is I have as just an option is I will assign specific topics to people to review with my team. So we'll have a monthly team-led training session where someone will come in and one of my team members will come into a meeting and we'll give them a topic that they have to cover, and they have to cover it completely to my satisfaction and to the managers beneath me, and then all of the actual scheduler forecasting team itself, so that they understand and they sort of become a SME on that topic at that time, a subject matter expert. For those that don't follow my analogy there, SME is a subject matter expert. So, but they will, depending on what we're talking about, whether it's scheduling, whether it's reporting, whether it's some type of nuance that we want within the system to start doing. And I say system, I'm talking about a workforce management system. So, we self-train, self-motivate, try to get these guys to be the full complement of a forecaster scheduler within our group.
Okay, no, that's great. And so, as you look at it, and I'll tell you myself, the forecasting part is the part that always I find daunting, and I've taught workforce management and that sort of thing, but just to do that really well and consistently well is obviously a big deal. So, and at the end of the day, scheduling, everything else will depend on that. So whoever's responsible for that has a big chunk of responsibility on their shoulders. But what do you see as the biggest challenges today for contact centers in this regard?
Well, I think number one, there's, and of course, like where we met, Bruce, at the interactions. I go to these conferences and I find people are still doing things the way I did them back in 1989. The magical Excel spreadsheet or, some homemade forecasting tool that they built. And, I know a lot of your listeners have all gotten some type of workforce management program. The larger organizations, it's almost a requirement nowadays to just keep up. But I think being able to do the forecasts based on your regression, your historicals, all those factors that people look at. I think that it's essential that you get it to within a target goal of plus or minus 5%. Forecast to what your actuals come in. I think that's a legitimate goal. I used to work for another company that had a in-house workforce management team. It was not an outsourcer like we are at Concentrix, but our forecasting ended up getting down to where it was plus or minus 3%, and it was consistent month over month, week over week, and we had great targets to hit, but we improved on those. So it's all about knowing your history, knowing where you're going, understanding all of the things that factor into this. It's not just straight, you had 100 calls, 100 calls, 100 calls, that averages out to 100 calls. So, that's your next forecast. No, you've got to understand marketing. You've got to understand what weather, what holidays affect your staffing, what's your shrinkage, all those things that happen in any environment, in any business. You just have to be better, and you have to keep moving forward with all of your trends and history and everything to get to that ultimate product. And like I say, my goal when on the accounts, and I'll clarify this in just a second, but on all of my accounts, my target is plus or minus 5%. So, if you can get within that, you're going to be pretty close. Now, I have some accounts, since I am an outsourcer, that our client actually does the forecast. Says, here's your forecast. This is what you're going to get. Well, then we have to go validate that against what reality is. And then we end up going back to our clients as an outsourcer going, you said we were going to get 10,000 a day, but we only getting 6,000, and now that's costing us money. So you need to, we need to work together to improve that forecast you're giving us. So, it becomes then a bartering position. And what has happened with a few of my clients is we have actually taken over their forecasting because we do it better than they do. So, it's just about being accurate, Yep.
Yeah. Well, and wow, 3% plus or minus on a consistent basis. That is super best practices. That is great. And just for those, because we have listeners, Rick, that go all the way from very large to quite small. So some of the people who are listening are probably still spreadsheeting, but they're growing to the point where they need to get the automated, they need to get the spreadsheets. I'm sorry, they need to get the software.
Right.
Oftentimes people will say that somewhere between 50 and 100 seats, depending on how many shifts you've got, how complex it is. Do you have at-home agents? All kinds of things sort of enter into the mix here as to when you have to go from the spreadsheets for your 20-seat center to something more sophisticated. But in terms of the plus or minus, 5%, do you find that for your clients that are smaller, can you still do that, or is it tough to do it for smaller clients?
It is very tough. The smaller the client, the harder it gets, because as you know, percentage numbers, are more affected when you're talking about small numbers. 50% of 100 versus 50% of 10. That's a huge variance in your forecast. It's a huge variance in your scheduling. So that whole thing is, you're absolutely spot on with that comment, Bruce. The larger groups, you can afford a 3 or 5 or 7% variance and still cover everything. Mm-hmm. When you get down to those little units, trying to get it 5% may be impossible. Especially if you've got like a 24/7 operation and you've got 50 people or 60 people total, you're going to have 0 spots where you get calls or interactions, and you're going to get 0. And it's hard to manage that, because that 0 may appear at 3 in the morning, or it may appear at 7 in the morning. So you don't know. So you got a lot of studying to do with the smaller groups. They have a little bit more of a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Well, we in fact, I have an online on-demand course on workforce management that deals with a lot of these issues, and they're fun. I mean, in the sense that they can stretch you mentally and bring you to places where a lot of people haven't been before in terms of reaching best practices. So that's a really good thing about it. But it is a challenge. There's no doubt about it. If we think about the challenges of what lies in back of all this, because I know you've thought a lot about people, right, and hiring and retention and work-life balance, things like that. What do you see as the biggest challenges from that side of things?
Well, I think me personally, my biggest challenges that come from that is that work-life balance. I'll start there. That work-life balance is how flexible are you? How flexible can you be? Do you have automation set up to where if someone needs to make changes? I mean, I still find companies that are managing their vacation in a way of, okay, we're going to line everybody up and you're going to tell me what you want, and then we're going to go put it in a spreadsheet. And and I'm going, why do you do that when if you're a major company, you've got some software that's going to help you do that. You can get add-on software for certain things. You need to manage that work-life balance for the agents as well. That's one of the big, I guess you want to say, one of the big buzzwords these days in that. I mean, I come from after 28 years, I come from the old school. You want a job? Come on. But you do have to consider, you do have to consider that, because it is a different world out there. And whether it's coming from the hiring perspective, or, how do you tell them that, well, we can accommodate certain things or we can't accommodate them? And if you do accommodate them, how do you do it? And again, it goes back to me, it's about automation and having the right tools that'll let you allow the agent population to be more flexible, from, auto approving and auto denying requests. That takes a lot of work. I mean, as you said earlier, 7,000 agents is hard to manage. That's why I use automation. I've got setups that allow agents to log in and from home and ask for schedule changes. So it's a great thing, and it's all processed based on the parameters that I and my team set up for these different groups. So that becomes huge.
Right, and in terms of that, being able to log on, ask for schedule changes, etc., that gets into the area of shift swapping and that sort of thing, right? Where you're giving people more flexibility. Some people may need some time for going to the student, the parent-teacher conference or something like that, whereas another person wants to have more overtime. Or wants to have a different thing, and you can sort of work with that, right? Can you tell us some stories about that, some situations that have worked, some tips there?
Well, some of the stuff that we've got going on is of course, we use schedule preferencing for our schedules, and when people are able to preference, and if they're able to put those preferences, and this starts with the schedule. I'll start there first, then I'll go to real time. But when they're scheduling, they can use preferences for their schedules, and if they're in our flexibility mode, we can allow them to put in their preferences. So if Mrs. Jones has to go to Bobby's play on Wednesday, but that's not her day off, that's not her work day, and she don't want to use her PTO, her vacation time, she can go in there 2 weeks prior to generation, and she can put in her preferences to have, I want Wednesday off this week, okay? So they can put their preferences in, then the system will generate schedules, and most people don't ask for Wednesday off, so guess what? It'll almost generate to her need for 1 week, and then she can change it back. She can change her preferences back, so that she can actually generate a schedule that fits her need without using her vacation time. Another thing we do is, we have a window to offer vacation time. They can ask for vacation far in advance, which I always tell them the further in advance, the better it's going to be for you, because right now nobody's planning to be off. We allow a certain percentage to be off from each group, and if she gets her dibs in, that's what I call it, if she gets her request in to be off on that day and it gets approved, she's off that day for vacation time, and it's all in advance. I'm finding a lot of people out there in the world are still doing it after schedules are produced. Well, this is even before schedules are produced. I want to have Wednesday off that week because I got to go to Bobby's little school play, that kind of thing. So they can do that. That's another option. Then as we get forward, there's schedule swaps with other agents. They can, I'll work your day, you work my day, or my hours, or they can swap days off, they can swap hours, whatever the case may be, for that one particular day. Of course, the day they're trading with, it could be. So they have a lot of options there, with swaps. So I've had people, come up to me, well, how come I can't get vacation next week? I said, when did you ask for it? He said, I asked for it today. Well, wait a minute. Today's Tuesday, and you asked for Thursday? Well, now we've had everything. Everybody else has been approved, and you're a little late.
Yeah.
And a true story, a lady asked me one time, she said, how come I couldn't get the day off? I said, because everybody else has filled up the allocation. She said, well, how am I supposed to get a day off? I have to be off because that's my son Bobby's birthday. I said, really? Well, how far in advance did you know that? She said, well, he's 22 years old. And I'm going, okay. Well, so for 22 years, you knew that was going to be his birthday. And even for the last 6 months, when you could have asked for the time off in advance and almost, without fail, be guaranteed that day off, you waited till the last minute to ask for it. So it goes back to educating the people so that they understand that they can get this stuff if they just plan it a little better, just a little better. It doesn't even have to be that much of a change. Just get it out there a little earlier. But then she said, well, I have to be off for my son's birthday. Well, he's 22 years old. You knew when you needed off, at least 22 years ago. So
exactly. Yeah. No, that's right. So the flexibility is great. There still has to be responsibility and accountability that goes with all this, and that means that you have to understand how it all works. And actually, one other thing with the swaps is you have to make sure that you're swapping, and obviously the system will do this, with somebody who has equal training, because you can't swap with somebody who's in a different area and doesn't know anything about what you're going to do, right?
Right, correct. It's all skills-based. And then it's just the way I've got my system set up, it's a body-for-body swap as long as the skills match. So I'm good. I'm golden.
Yep. Yep.
And they are too, because they're a lot happier with being able to swap or trade. And just recently, I just instituted an ability to trade with yourself if the need is there. So they would be able to, for example, we'll go back to Bobby and Mrs. Jones. She needs to be off Wednesday to go to Bobby's event, and if I'm overstaffed on Wednesday morning, if she wants to tack it onto the end, she can actually request to be off from, say, 9 to noon and then come back and work to make that hours up from 5 to 8. She would normally work 9 to 5, but in this case, she's going to work 10 to 8 because she wanted those extra hours off. So, again, automation is my big driver here, because to do all this stuff like that manually is really too cumbersome, at least for a team my size and as many people as we've got involved. So we highly recommend automation for all kinds of personal requests.
Now, do you find that in some areas that it's actually a good idea for you to overstaff? In other words, to have the forecast, then add a little bit on, schedule for that, but then offer people unpaid time off because there's a big demand for that sort of thing, and that you can be fairly sure that if the word goes out, that there's overstaffing, you can have some unpaid time off, that people will take it.
Oh, absolutely. That happens all the time. Remember, we make our best plan. We lay out the plan. That's what we expect. If that don't happen, how do you respond to it? And your example is what you're talking about is the exact example of that situation, because we expected 10,000 calls. We got 6,000 calls today so far, and we should have already had 10,000. Well, we can voluntarily go home or unpaid time off or whatever the case may be, and somebody may want to take off and leave early for the day, or possibly if the trend is there, you could do it for tomorrow. You can always look at that and say, well, we know the volume's not coming in. It's coming in 30% less or 20% less. You can react, and then you can adjust those requests, which, by the way, are another automated process that we have in place so that they can request this time off. Then we have it at a certain thresholds. It still goes to a holding tank. So if what we have revised as the anticipation volume still don't come in, then the sites still have that expressed capability to let more people go home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's a great thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it'd be fascinating to have your perspective too, to see things from around the world and how different people in different places, react or, have an affinity to certain techniques that can be used here, and also generational things. For instance, are the millennials and the Gen Zs more apt to take you up on the unpaid time off to have flexibility in their lives? Those would all be very interesting things to hear about.
Well, and everybody, like I say, the big buzzword right now is work-life balance, but other people use that same term as, oh my gosh, the millennials are killing me. But they really are easier to manage with the processes that we have. Just because they like the flexibility. They like to be able to go into that app or they go into the system from the work environment and go into that system and request time off, request changes, request swaps, whatever they're doing. And it's just handy. And they're used to it. I mean, we're talking about, and I'll say kids because I'm an old man, but kids that have been with iPhones 19 of their 20 years of life. You know, they understand all of that, and a lot better than I do. And they, oh yeah, this is cool. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Now, with that unpaid time off, there have been some life lessons learned. So I always caution people when they're doing that unpaid time off type thing. Even though they can do it, it's great. And then I have an example of a lady when I was at a different company, not with Concentrics, but she made the comment. She came in to me and she says, "Why is my paycheck like less than half?" And I looked at her. I don't do payroll. I don't know. Well, it's saying I only had this many hours, and I pulled up her schedule in our system, and I said, "Well, yeah, you had, for the 40 hours of work last week you were scheduled for, you had 25 hours of unpaid time off because you requested it." And they go, "Oh, my husband's going to kill me when I get home." That's what she said. So, yeah.
Okay.
Everybody has to understand that there's a cause and effect here. If you take all that unpaid time off, and it's nice that you're able to do that, but eventually it's going to catch up with your paycheck. So they got to understand that.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to give a heads up on because, of course, surprises for management are terrible. Surprises for employees are bad things too. So, giving them the warning ahead of time is a good managerial practice. So thanks for sharing that. That's a good idea.
Educate them.
The half hour is pretty much flown by. Maybe we can get one question in here from that Alan's got from a listener on automation, perhaps. Alan, what do you have for us there?
Yes, we have one question in from Tristan. He says, "How is automation going to change the things you are doing?"
It's really not going to change it. It's going to enhance it. All of the things that we do manually, and a lot of the call centers around the world are still doing manual processes day to day, week to week, month to month, to adjust schedules, to do things like that. When you start sitting down and doing a time study on automation, cutting back the amount of time you're spending on whatever function, whether it's the forecasting function, whether it's actual schedules, it's schedule adjustments, tracking your shrink and attrition numbers. If you've got automation setting those up for you so that you can handle all that in a system, and you don't have to go manually touch every schedule, every request, every person, the time savings just for you and your team is really going to really have a huge impact. I mean, when you think of 7,000 people, and I think back 25 years ago what we were doing, it was a ton of work. And we're talking about a single scheduler could stay busy 8 hours a day, all day long.
Yeah.
Well, think of the salary that single scheduler costs the company, and they could do 10 times as much with automation.
Yeah. We see situations where the workforce management team has gotten beyond reason, and it's because they're still doing things manually. And, you need to accept the fact that it'd be a lot less expensive to have workforce management software doing this. It would be more accurate at the end of the day. And, you could redeploy some of these people elsewhere because that's the reality of it. You won't need as many people doing it once you've got the software working for you. So. Or
I'll go the other side of that argument and just say that you'll have more time to analyze what you have put out. So
that's a good point.
Instead of redeploying that person somewhere else, I can actually take that person and have them truly analyze what's going on, dig deeper into the analyzation. So.
Yeah, no, and in fact, in the course we talk about the gathering phase, the forecasting phase, the scheduling phase, the optimization phase on the day of, and then afterwards the analyze phase, which you are talking about, and which is so important to getting better and better as you go forward. So
absolutely.
Well, listen,
absolutely.
This has been great. Any final words before we close the show? Because this has been great, Rick.
No, I don't really have anything else. I just think that everyone should try to develop their teams, and my goal is always to develop my team to be smarter than I am. So, if I get them all above my level of understanding, I've done my job. And I think that's the big thing. And get as much automation going as you can to save time on mundane tasks like vacation requests, schedule changes, schedule swaps. Take all of that manual process away from the guys that really need to go and analyze and look at and trend all the things going on within your contact center.
Fabulous. Okay, Rick Seeley, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our listeners in the United States. And I'll turn things back over to Alan to wrap things up.
Thanks again to Rick Seeley and Bruce Belfiore for your great discussion on today's show. Be sure to join us next month for another great show, or look at a huge selection of archive shows and topics at BenchmarkPortal.com. Then click on Call Talk, where you'll find over 9 seasons of this show. From all of us here at Benchmark Portal, keep those headsets steady and your fingers ready. This is Alan Pockharder signing out. Have a great day.